Again, welcome and thanks for joining today's Readiness administrative call. It's so hard to believe that it's February already. And but we are making it. I spoke to Christine from Syringa, and she is short-staffed today, so she is actually teaching in a classroom and said she's going to watch the recording. So if you're good, I'd love to start with Kelly this morning to tell us how things are going over in Shoshone. Kelly, you're muted.
Darn it. Things are good here. We are just finished module 12, which our goal is to finish the 20 modules and to increase our proficiency scores by 10%. And so had a lot of good conversations around the modules. We're doing it whole group and seeing a lot of the illicit instruction within the classroom. In my observations, I've started documenting the types of questions that teachers are asking and just keeping data on that so that, I don't know, just so that we can see what our practices are in the classroom right now and how what we're doing well and maybe what we could help improve on. And as far as our benchmark scores, we were right at 9% growth in our proficiency scores. And so I feel that we're going to meet our 10% growth. We've had a lot of challenges this year as far as our students' academic. A lot of new students have moved in that do not speak English. And so our scores represent that. And yesterday, and just for an example, we have been watching some students for about 1.5 years on the RTI process and referred 7 students to have some further testing. And so I feel like our SPED department is a bit overwhelmed with the amount of referrals that we have. I don't know if we're seeing some effects from COVID. We were not out of school at all during COVID. However, we have received a lot of students that have been missing or have missed a lot of education. So trying to figure out how to make up those gaps in our students, but that's how we're doing. I feel like we're in a good spot.
But what are your plans for extended school year for this coming summer to potentially address some of those learning loss issues?
So we are a 4-day week. And so one thing that I've implemented this year is that I have 12 different Fridays that I bring our struggling readers in. And so we have 4 hours that we work with them. I call it Friday Foundations. And so I have 4 teachers that do that. We do a rotation. And so I've embedded that in our school year. And then 2 weeks prior to school, I take that back. About a week after school is over, we do another 4-week summer school. So those are the 2 ways that we're doing that.
Anything that you think that the project might be able to assist you in at this point in helping your teachers, helping your parents? If you know,
I feel like we're doing we have our PTO is going, so that's excited. We haven't had a PTO in the school for quite some time. Starting to see some parent involvement within the classroom. Our parent representative on our Cultivating Readers team, she's been a great asset, just trying to give us a little picture of what parents may be feeling at home. And so she's given us some good ideas, and she's part of our PTO now as well. But as far as my teachers, I feel they feel overwhelmed trying to have them realize that this really is our implementation year and we're learning a lot, and as they can embed it in their instruction is very good. But I think they feel like everything they hear, they need to be putting into practice. And sometimes I think they feel like maybe they're doing something wrong. So I just keep trying to reassure them that, you know, we all are on this journey together, trying to figure out how to have common reading instruction for K-5 and using those illicit practices. But it does not mean that what we're doing in the classroom is bad or wrong. We're just improving our reading instruction. So I think if there's anything for support is how do we help our teachers when they are so overwhelmed with the day-to-day of what they have to do anyways, to feel the modules, we spend a lot of time on the modules. And so I think sometimes they feel just additional time, additional, just added to their schedule.
You do the modules together. Identify the strategies that you think would have the biggest bang for your buck and prioritize them. And as a group say, let's prioritize these as we're going to implement this first, see how it goes, look at our data, and then implement the next strategy that you've prioritized. It's very overwhelming to try to engage or try to implement everything all at once. So as a team, if you strategize how you're going to prioritize what you think is going to give you your bigger bang, then it feels more manageable. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. I think, yeah, definitely do that. Might put
What's going on at Rolling Hills?
Hi. So we've established our meeting times and have been more effective in going through our data, which I think was one of our pieces that we really wanted to identify, of bringing in more data to help us make some of those decisions about schedules, about curriculum, about targeted interventions necessary for some of these kids. And that's been very effective. One of the things that, and Shannon, I appreciate your email this last week, was that we were struggling with the fact that we needed a universal screener and a progress monitoring tool. And we went into it with the intention of having them be separate, because we had already purchased AimsWeb. We were thinking of AimsWeb being one of our progress monitoring tools. We already had it. But come to find out that no one was really using it and no one was effectively using it. So we are moving away from that. But your response to me, we have iStation as the full component. And so we are going to be utilizing iStation not only as our universal screener, but also as our progress monitoring tool, and utilizing the tools in our discussion in our last meeting was that we are not effectively using iStation to its fullest extent, and the interventions are already embedded in the iStation, as well as teachers can assign specific assignments based on skill set, just not a broad band of all 5 of the big 5 skills. So that was a huge, I guess, relief that we didn't have to teach a new platform. But we are drilling down now to utilize that much better. And I'm taking staff meetings to actually use it as PD to teach and train and discuss how to utilize iStation much better as a progress monitoring tool, because some have been able to effectively assign kids, say, text fluency or vocabulary as an additional assignment, because that's really what their intervention needs. But we haven't been documenting inside of iStation the intervention length, time, duration, and showing that progress. We've been doing that paper pencil with our EA and title. So we're going to utilize that iStation. That is our next big movement of making sure that we're utilizing that. And then our MTSSR meetings, and Kaylee, you'll probably see this in our next one, is that we're going to be, our teachers surprisingly wanted to give more meetings of our staff to PD and take our MTSSR meetings and move them. So we're going to be paying our teachers to relieve their pressure, paying them for a little stipend out of that to be able to utilize some of our monies to pay teachers for their time of coming in and staying later with that. The other thing is our parent on our MTSSR team. As we planned for the next few months in our agenda of our last Cultivating Readers or MTSSR meeting, we planned through March, and there were about 2 or 3 activities that our parent is going to be capitalizing on our literacy and getting that, working with our PFA. They're doing an activity around Read Across America, and she's going to capitalize on a reading activity that families can do with their children. And it is what it basically is, and I'll shut up here in a second, is the she's going to have a template that kids and their families can say, this is our family's favorite book to read at home, or a good book to read at home. And then the kids with their families decorate or make this. For the littles, it's just title of the book, color it, make it fun, and posting it. For the older kids, they're actually going to write a paragraph about why you should read this book. And we've dedicated some wall space in our wall, and she's also going to be marketing it on our social media page and our website with good books to read. So, and that's our parent pushing, giving us that as a good push. So things are starting to come together. We feel a little less discombobulated. So
give you credit for looking at the systems you have in place and the tools that you're using. And if they're not being utilized to fidelity, why? And if it's not necessary, making that shift. With iStation being available for both your universal screener and your progress monitoring, your teacher, your staff only have to learn one system versus 2 systems. And so kudos to you and your team for looking at that, reflecting on that, and making a change that's going to actually positively impact your teachers.
well, thank you. We're just trying to do our best. Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Working on it.
So Sarah, do you want to tell us how things are going up in Palouse Prairie?
Sure. We had a really great day today on Monday. It was our staff development day. And so we spent the first half really digging into our IRI reports and our interims for our upper grades. And it was really meaningful and good to look at it with a growth mindset. And we spent a lot of time framing the morning around opportunities for growth and where we can look at this data and really figure out who we're serving well, who we're serving okay, and who we can serve better. And we love the tier reports where they show the aim line of the students and what tier they started in the beginning of the year. and then where they're going. So we spent a lot of time looking at that when we talked about MTSS and how we're going to better support the students, because we saw a lot of our tier 3 students had a really steep aim line and are growing a lot. And so we're serving them very well. And tier 2 students are, everybody's going up, but not as drastic. And then our tier 1 students, although they're staying above and they're staying in the green, the aim line is not as steep, but they don't have to make up as much. So anyways, a lot of great conversation about growth opportunities and where we can move from there. And then we spent the afternoon as an MTSS leadership team going to each classroom and meeting with each staff member who created an action plan of how they're going based on those results and how their students are doing, how we're going to support them better, and kind of rearrange. So our goal is around systems, and we do have our tiered intervention support with tier 2 and tier 3 push-in support and a little bit of pull out, but most of it is push-in and intervention block time. And really talking about what kids need to move in and out of them, what skills we need to change. And there was a lot of really great conversations. So we're feeling good right now, even though, of course, there's always room to grow when you look at your data, but we're excited about the opportunity. So I think that has really set our mindset, and we're excited about that. And then my goal is just to wrap that around cultivating readers, because we're still very much so seeing cultivating readers kind of as a separate thing from what we're already doing, because it's like, oh, we have to do the modules. Oh, we have to do this. So I'm trying to frame and wrap around why everything fits together and why it's going to be beneficial. And Shannon, I appreciate your suggestion of listing out the strategies that you're going to focus on from the modules, because we are trying to do them together as a group. But it's hit and miss. Some days it's like, yes, we're getting some great information. Other days it feels more like a task than helpful to the teachers. So that's my job as a leader and my coach, to kind of make sure that we're framing it in a good way and taking those strategies away to you. So we haven't actually started the second set of 10. I'll be sending out calendar invites for those dates after school that we'll be doing them together this week. And again, I just really want to frame it and make it meaningful and not just another task to do. So that's where we are with that, but we are excited.
No, the second set of modules really are more strategies, less foundational skills.
Yay.
And so the first 10 really are about how do we frame the foundational skills so we all have the same conceptual framework on how we're going to teach these skills. And 11 through 20 really are very strategies focused.
I love that. And that is going to be so helpful, because right now, after this day-to-day, there's a lot of people are looking for resources and things to use to implement, on that foundational skill, how they're going to help their kids bump up. And that makes me excited, so that when I do send out the calendar invites, I can frame it as that these next modules are really on strategies, and it is more beneficial to do them together. So yay, I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. Hey, and now can we go on to Jeannie? How are things at Monticello Montessori?
Sure. Well, I feel like we just got back from Christmas break, and got a couple of weeks under our belt, did iStation testing, held our meetings, used data to group our children during wind time. And now we've had 2 days out from the cold, and the teachers are telling me it's like the first day of school today here. So I just feel like we get going and we stop, and we get going and we stop. But I guess as long as we just get going, we're doing well. We were really pleased when the children took the most recent iStation testing, because several of the skills that grade levels had focused on, they saw a dramatic increase in the kids' progress. And that's encouraging, I think, for teachers they put all this work in, and then when they see, oh, wow, that really does make a difference, that really did have a great impact, that's really positive. So hopefully we'll be in school for a few weeks pretty steadily now, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because we think it's working.
Awesome. Jeannie, have your staff been able to sign up for the first set of the modules?
I don't think yet. We were going to meet together yesterday after school, and then of course we weren't here. So we'll get on that and make sure that happens.
Great. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Let's see. Let's go to Richard.
So over in Caldwell, we're focusing on, like it says here, kind of that infrastructure for student implementation data. We've played around with Ames Web with our intervention groups and kind of test run it. So we understood how to track and where does it match up with interventions and those type of things. So our next step is really to go school-wide with that. So we're coming up with a plan to train the staff on how to enter data, gather data around those specific measures. So we have that going. We also as a team kind of mapped out our professional development, if you will, around the modules and how it's linking up to our overarching focus and school-wide improvement plan. And so we started with the modules around questioning. And with that, the staff really wanted to dig deeper into it. So we're doing a book study specifically around questioning and how to strengthen that strategy, and just really looking at it all kind of levels K through 5. We are getting a little bit more into overall like iStation data as well. We're in that halfway mark. So looking at what our first part of the year looked like compared to what we need to do for the second part of the year to make sure we hit our growth measures and our growth goals. But yeah, I think overall we're in a pretty good spot. Spent a lot of times with the leadership team, just really how to build the focus that like we've shared already. Some of you have shared like, this isn't just one more thing we're doing, that it's really what we're doing. And everything we do kind of fits into this around reading instruction. And so I personally, as a 5th grade teacher, historically speaking, I appreciate the upper level modules around strategies and those type of things, because that's what I think we can really begin to implement around. So yeah, so that's Caldwell.
One of the reasons I like people to share out is there's a lot of overlapping themes that start to occur as we get further and further into this project. And you are all where almost everybody has been at this time in the project. Teachers are tired, feeling a little overwhelmed, but your data should also start reflecting that what you're doing is having a positive impact on your students. A couple of things that I want to make available is in October, we held optional dyslexia training to meet the new legislative requirement that all teachers receive dyslexia training no matter what your grade level is. With that being said, we are going to have a second opportunity for your staff, not just in the project, but school and district-wide, to attend optional dyslexia training. We're having it April 3rd and 5th. Each of those are 2 hours long. And I've put mountain time. So sorry, my Northern Idaho friends, it will be 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock Pacific time, 4 to 6 Mountain time on the 3rd and the 5th. We're also going to have a Saturday option. And this Saturday option is the 4 hours in one chunk. Upon attendance and completion, you will get a certificate that states that you have completed this optional dyslexia training And it can then be used as documentation that you met the requirement of the training piece of the new legislation. I've embedded in the agenda the links, so you may send them out to your teacher. You know, you can copy and paste these links out to your teachers, to other buildings, anybody that needs to meet that requirement. We're opening it up to cultivating readers districts first, and then there will be additional people offered if slots are available. Are there any questions regarding the dyslexia training that is optional? Shane?
Yeah, thank you, Shannon, and thank you for reading the 2 pages of legislation that has basically turned Idaho education upside down this year. It's crazy. So the question I have is that for the optional dyslexia training does not replace the 10 hours that districts need to do. This is replacing that 1 credit 15 hours that the state is requiring for training. Is that correct?
Actually, the legislation does not say the building has to have 10 hours. The legislation says that there must be dyslexia training taken by all instructional staff. We are at the State Department waiting on the credit, and it's not really a credit. It's the 15 hours of professional development. We are waiting to see what this legislative session and new administration, because we have a new superintendent, interprets what we need to do. Because the legislation had by the end of the 2023 school year that districts must have had this training, that is why we have offered it twice. It meets that quote training component of the legislation. So I'm not sure where your information was regarding the building needed to provide 10 hours.
Well, it says that each district must provide 10 hours of dyslexia training to all staff prior to the 23-24 school year.
The legislation I've read has no 10-hour language in it. Kaylee, am I misrepresenting what we understand the training component to be?
So there was the training component that is required by the beginning of next school year. So essentially this school year or summer.
Yeah,
And this dyslexia training would meet that requirement. And then there's the requirement that I'd have to pull up the legislation to see if it has the 15 hours listed in there, but that's required for recertification. And so
yeah,
this,
the recertification is one credit, which is equivalent to 15 hours. But that's in paragraph C.
so this dyslexia training doesn't meet the 15-hour requirement.
And that's no later than the beginning of 2025, 2026.
Well,
No
and it
later-
depends on when the teacher is due for recertification.
Correct, yes. That's the other piece that is confusing too, but
It's very confusing and
no,
we haven't been
I'm
given
reading-
a lot of guidance either. So
I'm
we're kind of,
reading
like Shannon said,
paragraph-
we're waiting to see what happens in this session because
Yeah.
there have been rumblings that people could introduce other legislation to
Okay.
amend that legislation.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. And the reason why I bring this up is we've just decided to forego my staff meetings and put in an hour of dyslexia training for all my staff once a month. until we get 10 hours for us. And then we've either been in SMART or we've been taking these optional dyslexia trainings, or some of my secondary staff, because we do go through 8th grade, and my specialists, they've been signing up for credits through NNU for the 1 credit 15 hours. So it's that's why I asked, because I'm so confused about it. I mean, if I need to be put on a corrective action, I'm ready for it, but I'm also trying to be prudent and try to follow the law.
I think your best bet on that is to call the certification office at the State Department and record what they say, so you have it on tape and you know exactly what they've said.
To meet the training requirement through the content department and the certification piece. So again, I am not, districts can do it and buildings can do it, buildings choose to do. We wanted to offer this as a way of meeting the requirement without having to go find or search for additional training.
Okay, for that, I'm grateful. Thank you. Thanks for your work on that and answering my question. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. There has been, Kaylee and I meet with the parent group, actually iPool, who meets with the parent group. And Kaylee sent out a mid-year survey, and there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding about parent engagement and parent participation in the project. And I just wanted to provide some clarification that the parent that was identified to be your parent representative actually serves for 2 years, this year and next year. What we would like is that parent to help your MTSSR team identify a second parent, again, to participate for 2 years, starting next year, and then the following year. This will allow your MTSSR parent representative to have 2 people, except for the very first year of the project, and there's an overlap. So that parent that you have this year will mentor the new parent next year. After completing 2 years, roll off, and that new parent will then be the seasoned parent and recruit another parent to have for 2 years and then roll off. Does that make sense? Okay, Richard's giving me affirmation with head nodding. And Jeannie, so the reason I put this is now would be a great time to start identifying who that parent might be to join your team for next year. That new parent will be asked to attend serving on groups training in Boise during the Fall Institute, and then become part of your MTSS team over the course of the next year with the support of your returning parent. So we have heard, and I'm hoping it's not your case, that sometimes recruiting that parent can be difficult. And so we're asking, if you start in February, that individual will be identified and be prepared, and we can help support them getting to that training in August. And so everybody starts off on the same footing when the school year starts. Any thoughts on that? Jeannie's negative, Richard's negative. Kelly, okay. With that being said, we have created the registration link for the Spring Institute. The Spring Institute is a one-day virtual meeting with all of your MTSSR team, including your parent. We're still working on the agenda, but conceptually, we're looking at half of the day to be around MTSSR and working with Carol Disson, working with Kaylee on your district data. And then the afternoon, working with the instructional coaches, Lexi and Shelby, on intensification of instruction based on what the IRI has data is telling us for the year and so on. So the suggestion might be that your MTSSR team for sure attend the morning session, and we have your teachers who want that intensification on reading instruction to attend in the afternoon. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up now when it's in June, based on the way we're going to do this, would it be helpful to have a second registration just for the afternoon and a different registration for the morning, so you could invite the teachers in the afternoon, or keep just one registration, understanding they would not come on until the afternoon session if they're not part of the MTSSR leadership team? I'm looking for input.
So you want to invite all teachers, not just the teachers participating in cultivating readers to the afternoon?
Some districts are having additional teachers outside attend those monthly calls with Lexi and Shelby where they talk about instruction, and we encourage. They're free, they're virtual, they cost nothing, but they're great information. So Sarah, if you've only had specific teachers doing the training or attending those calls, it would be up to you. But what we really do is we take the IRI data, we look for trends across the project in the state. And last year, we had a very intense conversation around text fluency. The year before, it was about spelling and why spelling was so low across. So depending what the data says is what we provide intensification training on to address those sub skills that are low across the board.
Okay.
I said a lot of words. Did any of it answer your question?
Yeah, I
Well-
think I understand. And then I think I think 2 different registrations would be fine. And then I'd have my MTSS team register for both besides the parents. And then if I wanted to include like my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teacher in the afternoon session, I could.
Haley, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say some bigger schools don't have all of their teachers on their MTSSR team, leadership team. So those teachers wouldn't attend in the morning, but they would attend in the afternoon.
But
And
we
can I-
would have your teachers that are part of the MTSSR team attend in the morning. Sorry, Kelly, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. And then the 4 hours in the afternoon, that also is part of the last 4 hours of that dyslexia credit as well, or the PD, the 15 hours PD, is that correct?
Just to be clear, we have not addressed the 15 hours of dyslexia PD because they have, as a state and a legislature and a new administration, have not clearly defined what that is. We are working really hard to make sure everybody meets the legislative requirement for the training piece, which is different than the certification piece. You look puzzled, Kelly. Where can I provide additional?
When at the first, our collaboration calls, our Tuesday collaboration calls, I only had our leadership team join in those. And then it was my understanding of the 15 hours or a credit was going to be given to add our teachers to that Tuesday night collaboration call along with June 13th.
And if the legislation is clarified, we will be working on that, tracking who attended those calls and the Spring Institute to meet those 15 hours. It was so poorly written, and I'm sorry, it was so poorly written. The people here at the State Department are still trying to determine what that looks like.
So they're still trying to determine if we even need the credit for recertification, because my teachers, because I was under the assumption at the beginning when I added them to that collaboration call, that was the intent of it. But
and it
has changed.
Nope, that is the intent if the legislation stays as is and that requirement is still required.
Okay, perfect.
We're going to cover all of the bases. Again, poorly written legislation, new administration. We are really waiting till March to hear how it all plays out.
Okay. Yeah.
Once we know how it plays out, we will be working with the administration to identify, explain. We've been sharing what we're doing with them all along, so they have some idea of what we're doing. However, an elected body actually could have more or less requirements once the session's over.
Sorry, I know that there was some questions with that earlier, just when it came to the June 13th. I just wanted to.
Yep, we're gonna make sure that it's covered.
Thank you.
Kaylee, do you have anything to add to that? I know we sound like we're wishy-washy, but nobody really knows.
No, I just continue apologizing. We're kind of in the same boat. But like Shannon said, we just want to reassure you that what we're doing meets the requirements for dyslexia training. We just, once we know exactly what the legislation is and what we need to do, we will apply for it to be officially on the list of PD that meets the requirements. So we know that the content in Cultivating Readers meets the requirement. We just have to wait and see what they do.
Any other questions on that very confusing topic? Okay, so what I'm going to do is disregard this registration link for June 30th or 13th. I'm going to recreate two different links, and one will be specific to the MTSSR portion in the morning, and the second will be, and just to be clear, Kelly, it's going to be about 3 hours, maybe 3.5. It won't be a full 4 hours. It'll be like 1 to 4 or 1 to 4:30.
And that'll be 9 a.m., right?
Excuse me?
That'll be 9 a.m.
It'll be 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. And
no,
then,
Shane, 9 p.m. We're gonna be.
oh,
we
yeah,
see you
I
there
know.
at 9
I
p.m.
fixed it. Yeah. Yeah, I got it fixed in the system, but
You know, you all are busy during the day, so we figure let's work at night too.
we can be at home. So in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to jump down to this parent resource first. But part of the parent resource has to do with how are we communicating and sharing information with parents and that parent engagement piece. The National Center for Improving Literacy is one of our partners, and they are amazing. They have reading experts from all over the nation that create materials not only for state and school districts and classroom teachers, but they have this huge parent engagement section. So I put the hyperlink in here. So if you just click on it and open it, it's going to take you to their website. Idaho, a couple of years ago, created some parent videos, which are still housed here that we're very excited about. But they also have a variety of different infographics in both English and in Spanish that talk about how parents can support their child's reading at home, some routines to put in place to help the family encourage more reading within the home environment. They explain, they've done this whole thing with Dr. Evelyn Johnson, who has also been a partner of ours in the past, about what is the relationship between MTSS and the diagnosis of dyslexia. They have just a plethora of resources that are available for you at no cost, that we encourage you to potentially put a link in a parent newsletter or send home as a flyer with the family. There's two ways that you can access this material. If you go to improvingliteracy.org or put in National Center for Improving Literacy, you can either click on the Parent and Family tab. For teachers and schools, you could click on for schools and districts. Some of this material might be helpful in talking to school board members or community members. Shane, you and I were talking about universal screeners, and here's a one-page infographic on questions to ask after a universal screener. There's also tools and resources. And with the tools and resources, there are these improving literacy briefs, which tend to be more academic. There are implementation toolkits, ask an expert videos and webinars, learning literacy, glossary, literacy skills checklists, the state of dyslexia, and the resource repository. I personally love the resource repository because you can put in the search. There are 1,200 plus resources that they have. And again, they're both in English and Spanish. You can choose your audience. I want to find something for parents. I want to have maybe the topic being, let's choose dyslexia because that's what we've been talking about. And then you can look for, is this an activity, an article, a document, a game, a guide? So you just pick what you're interested in. Let's pick both documents and maybe an infographic. And if you click find, they will tell you there are 2 resources that meet that criteria. Do vision problems cause dyslexia? And school-based dyslexia identification, a parent overview. And again, they're very highly professional documents that you can utilize and share with families.
Shannon, if
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you as an administrator, your teachers are like, well, I don't know if my families will be able to drill down like this, you can create a QR code that will take them directly to it. So
Correct.
that they don't have to drill down. And it's just a right click on the mouse of the page that you want them to go to. And it also makes it easy for adding to a classroom newsletter. So you just ask your teachers, hey, could you put this QR code in with your newsletter?
And that's great for sharing. I appreciate that, Shane. What I would encourage is either your parent representative, if they have the time or the interest, to spend some time and identify some resources, one of your teachers, even you. I just clicked, these are all infographics, and you can tell based on here in the bottom, it's an infograph and it's for parents and families. So you can look at the different topics. So let's just look at 7 top tips for supporting reading at home. You could just put a QR code in and a parent, and they would have access to this material. And the nice thing about infographics, it's a lot of information in a one pager that's attractive and easy to read.
Thanks for that little tidbit, Shane. I didn't know you could right click and create a QR code. I'm going to use that.
And I think what Shane is saying is it on the link that you just right click?
No, just move your mouse to the page,
Yep.
right? Don't click on a hyperlink. Sorry. Just move your mouse up into the blue grayish area.
Good golly.
Did it again.
I know, because I'm excited.
Yeah, now right click. No, whoa, get off a hyperlink. Now right click.
Create a QR code. There you go.
There it is. And it creates one, and then you just, and anytime you link on that. The other nice thing for this is cellular phones. If most people are going to use their phone, it's easier for them to click on a QR code than it is to try to search a website. And it'll take them right to that infographic or whatever page you're wanting them to see without having to drill down. Because many people, if they're on their phone, they're going to click on one page.
Yeah. The other thing, the other way that NCIL organizes is down here. Here's the title, here's a brief summary, but then this is about comprehension. This is about screening. So if you don't have to open up every resource to know what this one is comprehension in Spanish. So Kelly, you stated you had quite a few families that came in that are Spanish speakers. And if they're Spanish readers, you could share some of this information with those families as well. So we have 3 minutes left. Is there anything that you need from Kaylee and I that we need to be aware of?
Or just any support or questions that you need.
Has anybody found a good video camera, microphone, tripod using their money yet? Yes, spend it.
Some of our school districts have found that just an iPad on a tripod has provided them what they need. Kaylee, were you going to share what you've learned?
A lot of folks, it seems like, use their phones. But yeah, a lot of people purchased iPads and tripods. And that's just what I see through their general ledgers. So
to meet with us today. I will turn this into a video, so if you need to or want to go back and review, you'll have access to it. With that being said, we will be meeting again on March 1st. We're getting down to the end of your first year. Super excited. And we'll spend some time at the Spring Institute looking at your student progress and working with your MTSSR teams. So with that, have a fabulous day, and I'll talk to you in March.
Thanks, everyone.